Hey guys, what's going on? Andrew here. Welcome back to a new video on the channel. Today, with the Premier League season coming right around the corner, I figured why not make my Premier League predictions for this year. But before we get into it, let's take a look at what FIFA 16 had to think about it. I simulated a season with updated rosters, and this is what FIFA gave me. Starting from the bottom are Burnley, Sunderland, and Hull, followed by Bournemouth, Watford, Southampton, Crystal Palace, West Ham, Middlesbrough, Stoke, Swansea, Everton, Leicester, West Brom, Arsenal, Liverpool, City, Spurs, United, and then Chelsea finishing at the top. But we all know FIFA can be super unrealistic. So here's what I think is going to happen. Starting from the bottom, I have Hull City. As everybody's probably seen, this newly promoted team is without a manager, has like 13 fit players. It's almost impossible for them to stay out of the relegation zone, let alone out of the bottom spot. At 19, I have Sunderland, another team that just really hasn't done it in the transfer window this year. If you go into the season with a team that got you into 16th and 17th in the last few seasons, you're not really going to do very well as everybody else around you gets better and you're not improving. My last team to be relegated is West Brom. Just like the other two teams, they really just have not done it in the transfer window this year. These guys finished 14th last year, but only 6 points from safety. And that was because Solomon Rondon had a great year. I truthfully don't think he's going to do that much better this year. The first team I have surviving the relegation zone is Burnley. Andre Gray is really going to keep them up this year. Is he going to be the league's leading goal scorer? Probably not, let's be real. But I think he's really going to have an impact for this team and keep them up. Not comfortably, but they'll get through. Next up, I have Southampton. Southampton brought in a few guys. They brought in Holsberg from Bayern Munich and Redmond, who are two very decent additions. However, I think the loss of Wanyama, Mane, and Graziano Pelle are just too much to do anything decent in this season this year. Next up, I have Bournemouth. Bournemouth, I have them at 15, right where they finished last year, because I think they just haven't done it in this transfer window. They could have brought in a lot of big names that they needed, a forward who could have done it. They brought in Jordan Ibe, which is a good addition, but I don't think he's going to be doing, that big 12 to 15 goal range that a team needs to be comfortable in that, 13 to 10 spot in the BPL. Following them is Swansea. Swansea lost two big names in Gomes and Adair up top that really could have been difference makers for them in the league this year. However, I think bringing back Llorente is a great signing for them, and him and Sigurdsson are going to do really well. With help from Jefferson Montero on the wing, I think he's going to be really productive this year. At 13, I have Middlesbrough. They're going to be my Watford this year. They're going to be the guys that, even though they got newly promoted, they're not going to be in that 20 to 15 range. They're going to be sitting comfortably in the middle of the table. These guys have made moves this year. They brought in Victor Valdez. Negredo up top is going to be great. Fisher's going to be a good option. This transfer window was Middlesbrough's way of saying they're not taking this season lying down, and I think they're going to really fulfill on that promise. At 12, I have Crystal Palace. The loss of Dwight Gale for Crystal Palace has been the only negative in this transfer window. They brought in Steve Mandanda in goal to really solidify that position. Tompkins and Townsend are two really just solid all-around really good players for them to bring in and make their team just that much more dynamic. Next up at 11 is Watford, and this pick is strictly assuming that they keep both Dini and Igalo. If they don't keep Igalo or Dini, you can basically throw them down into the 15 to 14, 13 range. If they keep Igalo, this dangerous attack is going to do work in the BPL this year. They've proven to be dangerous, scoring a combined 27 goals last year, and there's no question that they can put the ball away. The only question for this team is going to be, how does their defense hold up? They've got an aging goalkeeper in Gomez, and their center back is not as reliable as some other ones in the league that you can look at and say, that's the guy I want in my team. So the difference between Watford being in the top half and the bottom half are going to be that center back defensive midfield position. I can see them sitting at 11 very nicely. At 10, I have Stoke City. Imbula is going to do well this year. Joe Allen's going to do well also. And I think their new Egyptian signing, who I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'm not going to try it, but I think that's also going to be a really good signing for them. He looks very, very promising. Their wings have always been solid with Shaqiri and Arnautovic. Jack Butland's always solid in goal. Jeff Cameron has proven to be constantly consistent. Their wing plays are good, but their last piece that they're missing is that consistent striker. Mame Biram Diouf, Peter Crouch, Ojan even sometimes, they're not as consistent enough. You're not getting them on the ball and going to say, this guy's going to score today. You don't know it. And until they can fix that, they're not getting out of that 10 to 8 range. At 9, I have Leicester. Going back-to-back is hard for any team. Now, you take Leicester, who have lost their best player in Conte, arguably, are now balancing an extended schedule with Champions League qualifying and possibly knockout rounds, and a competitive Premier League season. I can't see them finishing back in that Champions League spot. I don't see them going down to the bottom half. I think that's just unrealistic. I think if you play Mendy, I think you're going to be fine. It's not going to be Conte. Nobody can fill Conte's role, but I think Mendy can really do a job. Vardy's still going to have a great season. Mahrez, after the transfer window closes, he won't have any rumors surrounding him. I think he'll produce well. Schmeichel or Zieler, whoever goes in there is going to do all right. Their back line is solid as always. The question is just going to be if they can handle the loss of Conte, which I think they'll be able to, but the long season is going to be tough for them. At 8, I have West Ham. They had a great year last year behind Dimitri Payet and brought in some really great signings. I think Feghoulie's going to have a great year. And other than that, there are really no really strong attacking options that they can use other than Dimitri Payet. So I think either Feghouli steps up, or you just kind of have to assume that you're not going to get a lot of goals out of your forwards. It's going to be more from the midfield. But other than that problem, I can see West Ham having a really strong team this year. But because of Europa League and a really strong start to the season with Chelsea and Man City and teams like that, I see them having a tough time keeping up with the pack in the beginning and catching up with them later on in the season. At 7, we finally come to my team, Everton. After a really, really disappointing 2 years under Roberto Martinez, Koeman's come in with a new game plan, lots of money to play with, and he really hasn't delivered too much. But I think the change in dynamic of the team is really going to help us push through. Stekelenburg can be a good option. He's played well for Koeman before, and he trusts him, so I have to trust him as well. And Gueye from Villa is also going to provide a different type of dynamic next to McCarthy in the midfield that Barrage didn't give. And the last step that we need to do is either keep both Stones and Lukaku, or secure signings that are going to help us solidify those positions once they leave. At 6, I have Arsenal. Arsenal were a lot higher on my list before I started this, and then throughout preseason they lost all 3 center backs. It's kind of tough to win a league or do well in a league without a center back. So now with the very short time they have left in this window, they need to fill 2 center back spots, and I mean Arsenal fans know the rest. They've been begging for a striker for years that they can depend on. So without a striker that they can say, this is a guy, we're counting on him and he's going to do great for us, they're not going to get in that top 5 spot because there's just too much talent there for them to break into without a consistent forward and a solid back line. And now for the top 5, all the teams in the Champions League. And I think Liverpool get back in at number 5. Liverpool have upgraded many of their positions this year. After losing Skrtel to Fenerbahce, I think bringing in Matip is a really good upgrade for them. Karius was also a really good signing until he got hurt, but I still think Mignolet is decent, and I think he can still do a really good job. The real question is going to be if Wijnaldum can break into the midfield and produce. With names like Coutinho, Lallana, Firmino, it's going to be hard to get into that midfield, and if he can break in, I think he'll do very well, but the first step is getting in. At number 4, Spurs. Young, talented, promising, proven, all words to describe Spurs from last season and this season coming up. Victor Wanyama has been a great signing for them, making them a much more well-rounded team, and Janssen is going to be pretty decent as well. I think playing Wanyama next to Dyer is going to be a really good idea, but I just can't see them breaking into the top 3 just because it's so stacked with great players and that they're just going to fall short. At 3, I have Chelsea, and I hate this team more than I hate a lot of things. But I think Conte is really going to do a great job with them. I think he's going to bring them back into their Premier League glory, so to say. And it's not necessarily because of the signings he makes, but the changes he's going to make. Bringing in Conte is going to be great. I think bringing in Batshuayi is also a really good help or replacement for Costa, depending on what happens with him. And if they do end up getting Lukaku, I think it'll be a really, really good, promising pairing for them, the 2 Belgians together. And if they can get one more player, I think that's all they need to replace that training cone that they named Ivanovic out on the field. I think they'll be decent. At number 2, I have City. City, at first glance, seem to have it all. Aguero up top, a midfield with Gundogan, Yaya Toure, Fernandinho, all these big names. Otamendi at the back, Zavaleta at the back, Nasri, Jesus Navas, Kevin De Bruyne, all these big names. But if you look at the players they brought in, Sane, Nolito, they aren't super proven outside of their leagues. Yeah, they've had really good years and super hype, but it's so uncertain. Along with the idea that Kompany gets hurt every time he steps on the field, and we all saw what happened with Joe Hart at the Euros. There's so much uncertainty there that I think they'll do very well with the team they have, but I can't put them in number 1 because I just don't think that they can consistently go out and do it every day. United, on the other hand, they can do it. United fans have been waiting for a team like this since Fergie left. Having Mourinho at the head of his team, he is a winner and he is going to bring them back to winning ways. Zlatan up top, he's Zlatan. Wherever he goes, he does well. Pogba in the middle, while super overpriced, is still going to do a really good job. Mkhitaryan, I feel like, is going to be a really good super sub kind of thing. He can come in on the wings, in the middle, and just provide that spark of energy that they'll probably need 75, 80 minutes into a game. Bailey, if he plans out, is going to be a great defender. And then you go back into goal, and De Gea, what's there to say about him? He's amazing. With other players like Martial and Rashford set to have another big year, this team has no weak points. It cannot be beat. But that's it, guys. Thanks so much for sticking around and listening to what I had to think about this Premier League season coming up. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think is going to happen? Who do you think is going to win? Who's getting relegated? If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. But until next time, be good.